Hola, hola. I'm Trek with two Ks,
And I am 3D, and welcome to Metaverses The Other Side.
brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto Network. Just a heads up, this episode is before we had the idea of bringing the Twitter spaces to the Gentleman of Crypto Network. And so that's why we're talking about the stuff that we're talking about in this episode.
What up, Jack? I sent you the host invite. That should be popping up on your screen. Yeah, there we go. This is a recording. So while I wait for people to come in, I'll just give the ideal point perspective. So this is going to be the positive and negative of interoperability. I'm not even sure how I can spell that right. In metaverse, basically, what are the goods and the bads about it, and when is it actually going to end up looking? Everybody expects it to look like player ready one, but in reality, it probably won't look the same. That's the goal of speaking about today. So we get some people in here and then we'll start rolling the conversation. How you been doing, Trek?
Okay, sorry. I didn't realize the mic got muted, but I was saying that it's literally a number of conversations that I had today in relation to like X amount of the good and the bad parts. We did this roundtable thing at the DC councilman's or council person's office, the DC council sessions office. I don't remember the exact name of the office or whatever, but the point being is we were talking with the technical officer for the mayor of DC.
Very cool.
And yeah, so that kind of just happened very last minute. And we have thoughts about blockchain. We do want to talk to people who are more involved in the space. And this is okay, this is interesting. Let's see where this goes.
Not to talk.
Yeah. See that. Sorry, I'm trying to share the joint on my side. Space. Yeah. Okay. So I can't go into the other account, which is funny. Oh, is that you know what? I wonder if that's what that is. So if you're not the host of a space, and let's say you have multiple accounts, you can't go into the other account. It's all these like little things that I feel like I'm going through with hosting or dealing with doing these Twitter spaces. Bro, the amount of troubles we be having on the other side when I do the Wevolution Twitter space, it's crazy how much issue we be having. You can't see people even though they're in the room, or like when you're trying to give permissions, the person can't see that you're giving them permission. There's all types of little funky stuff that be happening on the other one that I also co-host. Yeah. So anywho, man, interoperability and like the good and the bad of this Twitter thing. Side note, literally had somebody recommend the book to me, Dune, today, and they were making the point of there's definitely a number of similarities if you look at it from a blockchain awareness point of view in regards to the book. Go over to sideways what the movie does, but the book definitely has some things that you can extrapolate
Yeah.
in that kind of context. So now I'm like, all right, man, I need to go get this book. Because I've then seen the movie, the earlier one, and I've seen the new one. Wasn't really a fan of the new one, but I've seen the older ones, the 80 joint.
Yeah, I've seen the one from the 80s and the like late 90s, early 2000s that Sapphire did.
So yeah, I know that we are like definitely not on topic, but probably 5 minutes in, if you want to try to, no, that won't work. No, that's not the thing that I want either. Oh, it won't let me do it right now? Yeah. I'm trying to throw it into a couple of the other group. Let's see here. So, sorry, trying to text and share the post or share the tweet for the spaces.
Right. I'm on the computer just sharing it out too. I guess while we're still off topic, I've got more the shroom plot unrolled and going on. It's definitely turning out fun. Doing the glass maze or whatever. It's hard as fuck. But it's gonna be worth it.
I was talking with somebody the other day that they have been doing the whole so you remember the whole thing that we talked about getting exposure in different metaverses?
Yeah.
That's literally what their strategy is right now. So they're like, yeah, like I'm talking with the guy, and we bought plots, and he named a couple of places like Decentraland, Voxels, and he named like 3 other ones that I wasn't really sure of. But for whatever research they came up with, that was like they were on their radar. And it was pretty much, I think Sandbox was one of them, and I can't remember the name of the other one, but I think it was EVM related. That was like where their thing was. But
Yeah.
the point of why I bring this up for the folks who are listening to this later on is that this is something that me and 3D have been saying like how long ago, that you can have the strategy of, I might not be building anything per se right now, but I at least want the brand expansion, the brand awareness. So I just want to have my little logo in some place on the map that people can see. And that's literally what they're doing right now. It's not like that they have product that they're pushing to people, is that they're just expanding their brand awareness to different worlds.
Yeah. That's definitely the smart move. I know, like on the Ethereum side, I had got options to get into that Las Vegas land one. It's just too rich for my blood type thing. But from my understanding, that's one of those ones that's popping pretty hard, pretty quick. And it is kind of the rush part about getting into the metaverses and stuff, is like knowing which one's going to pop and which one's going to not.
Yep. So I guess that counts as like a downside part of it, where it's, you put in the equity of time in building or the equity of capital, and it's just, will this pan out for you? We don't know. Like, who has the actual sustainable model based on like how you understand risk and time preference? And will it actually be market adoption? I don't know. Or will the market adoption grow at a rate that gives you like a
sustainable?
Right. This stuff is so much of a gamble, and there's so many things to try to like weigh in and figure out. And then when you then start getting into, okay, are we just talking about, well, how does it look now in the jurisdictions and like that whole scene versus what is it going to look like in another like 4 or 5 years? What was it, last week? Something just came out about, I think it was no, it wasn't Thailand. It was South Korea. South Korea is saying, or indicating, I should say, indicating they don't want to regulate the metaverse space or metaverses like they regulated or over-regulated the gaming industry. And then that made me like wonder, like, okay, so what's the gaming industry as far as like how you guys have your regulatory policies and guidance set up around it, and like how are things being defined in that? Where's my point of going in this thing about them regulating?
Like basically they over-regulated games so bad where they lost a lot of potential money that they could have made. So they're trying not to do that again, basically.
Right.
What you're saying.
Okay, funny enough, that's how I read the article. It was that they over-regulated so much that it cost it. Basically they lost money. They could have made more revenue for taxing the business, but because they went so strong-armed on regulating the industry, the development slowed down to a degree, or for whatever it did, but they definitely didn't make the money they could have made as a country as far as taxation goes. And then, of course, just thinking of, would the industry have went up and how much revenue was made overall? Like, heaven knows what that could have been.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, what's going on, Shay? Wait, oh, she's just on the listening side? Like, at least got a clap or a smiley face? Jesus.
I sent her an invite to speak. Oh, okay. I know she does that comedy thing. She does that comedy stuff with like Salvi and stuff.
Yes. See, somebody said we give Mike Salvi a shout out. and what he's doing with the whole like comedy shows.
He's got the comedy metaverse.
Yeah, and he's doing that in, is it Voxels or Sandbox?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
one of them.
I think it's Voxels though. I think so, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, but those are the things. That's the pro. Hey, you want to do comedy shows, or you want to do show like some kind of creative satire show thing? Here you go. Granted, you got to work to build the audience. Arguably, they're there. Do you need a production deal? Not really. You just need to figure out how to get online and be able to do stuff in voxels.
Yeah, and I think he did it in a smart move. Like he built up his crowd personally, but then he found a bunch of other people that were like needing help on the come up, and he used his metaverse. His whole idea of doing everything online for a while to help them come up, and they were really seem to be flourishing pretty good. And so then that made his metaverse drop just boom from the start. Like from my understanding, it's not that old, and it's been doing every show's been people have been showing up and stuff. And he just shows like the strategy that he's doing there, where it's not just him. He's bringing others in, and both in real life strategy, marketing and online marketing.
Yeah. It definitely was like John, Sherry, there's a couple other people. But yeah, they definitely have been doing their thing. They've been on the grind. He's definitely been like looking to lead the way on them getting to understand like the crypto side of it and pushing everything forward. And yeah, that's the crazy part about this whole space right now. Like the options and is availability the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
No, I don't think availability is the word I'm looking for, but like the ideas of this content creation side of it, like how do you want to create the content? A comedian said, well, I'm a comedian. Well, a person says I'm a comedian, and like he's literally been doing stand-up and all of that stuff for a bit. And it was like, let me bring some other people along who are also working to hone and craft their skill at this thing called comedy. And we can do it in a virtual space. And I don't know how the recording side of Voxel works, if you can record the stuff that you do, but it's like golden, right? You have your stuff and like you can put it up or splice it up or make it into new social media content. There's a number of things you can do with that right there. You can do your own special at a certain point. Wait until after, man, like later on this decade or like down the road, it's going to be crazy the things that people are like pushing or looking to do, where it's not going to be you worried about Facebook and then, oh, do I have to do this to get the right number of views? Or because here's the crate, like I'm so sidetracking on this, but I'm making a point about this thing of building community and like your metaverses and how you utilize, let's say, third-party applications or platforms that allow you to create metaverses. YouTube has already shown the trajectory as far as once you get people on board in the adoption phase to a certain level, and then you start restricting what they can and can't do. And I would argue that X amount of these metaverses that are going to come up in the next couple of years, they're going to try to run that same model. And so if you go through the thing of trying to build your community, you got to really be careful in where you build the community at. And if something happened to that platform, what do you walk away with? I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that they definitely got to think about more often. And that can bring us in the topic because if you're on Meta and Meta has IPs for things and you're in their New Horizons or whatever metaverse and you're doing things, imagine just the, like most people, they always want to say, oh, I want to be able to pull my whatever out of there and put it into another one. And stuff like that, and taking out like Meta's New Horizon, I don't see that's just not going to happen. Meta's not going to let go of those properties and those items that they want that control over the asset, right? Even though Minecraft was like, hey, we want everybody with NFTs to shut down. We don't want them connected in, but they didn't say anything about cryptocurrency being connected. They didn't say anything about metaverse being connected. And like when we pulled out those 30 objects that was rendered out of Minecraft for a Spore Baby, basically now Spore Baby could go spin up one of the rooms, any kind of metaverse room. There's tons of them now, right? And he could go drop some of that stuff up in there. He could just drop it in. And if his Minecraft server, let's say the uplift shuts down, he still has that. And so he created an interoperability or whatever it's called, interoperability with the items. So when it comes into the negatives of interoperability, it's like the metaverse, right? I like since Facebook is called Meta, it got confusing. But yeah, Facebook's Meta stuff is one of those ones you're not going to move out or whatever. But the positive thing is that we can also create interoperability with things that are not normally interoperable with the technology we have at foot. So then you just got to risk getting hit with some kind of law or whatever. But those people that always wanted to play already won stuff, and they're like, yeah, I just want to be able to pull it out of that and put it in here, where now you could go jump into Decentraland, and I guess maybe not, you can go jump in there, but there are ways to capture the data that you're seeing in there. And you could steal like the Samsung building or a model of someone or something and put it into another one, and you'd have that interoperability without having that interoperability.
Okay. Wow. That was ridiculously bright. Oh, sorry. I'm sitting out in my van conducting this Twitter space right now. Yeah. Like, I honestly think if what we're looking at is what I think it is in regards to Minecraft and Microsoft, of them being like, hey, we need to follow the traditional marketing and IP rules around like how we push out products. And if you're trying to do something that's similar to our stuff, and then no, we have to lock out the market to competition, it's going to be a sad ass execution of product. And I say that on the end of, if you look at it and go, for what Microsoft traditionally does is they'll do things to outcompete a app or a platform or whatever by offering, right, or a competitor, as far as either they'll do something like lowering prices to a certain amount or offering a service that for free that they can deal with, like not having that draw revenue for them because that's not the thing that they get their money from, or versus what arguably is an example of what's playing out with Adobe and Figma right now, where they're buying out the competition because down the road, Figma might be a hell of a bigger product competitor to deal with than where it is now, right? So it's like, all right, we got to get rid of the competition now. I bring that up on the end of the Minecraft and Microsoft thing, not because there's any talk that I'm aware of about them buying out Uplift or anything like that, but the idea of, it looks like this is one of those, we have something that we want to push out, but we can't have any competitor doing something similar. So we're not trying to like make it be equal competition. We're actually trying to scale it in our favor. So we have to push off and stop any other potential competitor, even if you're within our quote ecosystem. Which I think that other thing that we were talking about like that, the way that terms of service works, we should definitely delve into that for another one of the spaces and just like breaking that down of what is, and then that also goes into the bigger thing too, bro. What does that mean like down the road when the companies that aren't the direct thing themselves, but they're like the parent companies, and they start pushing down policies for the subsidiary companies, and then terms of service start saying stuff like, hey, if you come up with a variation of anything that came out of our ecosystem, like that's our IP, that's our product.
Didn't CryptoPunks actually have something like that in theirs? I know they have one saying that you can't use their property, but did they have, if you create something to go with their NFTs or property or anything like that, that they technically own it as well?
I thought that was prior to other labs buying them
and then they put them under Creative Commons or the same setup that they have for the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because
It
before it
was
was
probably
that.
before.
Yeah. And I forgot where I was reading that at, but that was like months ago that I read that. And I didn't even know that's how CryptoPunks was like put out in the beginning. But yeah, like this goes to for folks listening to this later, the point of this is that it goes into what are the potentials down the road that we're not even like getting yet, or there's things that are happening now in a negative way that not really being addressed, or better yet, there's the situations that are popping up that we don't know how it's going to play out as far as the counter or the way that the market will actually say, okay, we accept this or we don't accept this. And I don't know if what Minecraft eventually comes out with as a, hey, here's our NFT thing. What's going to be funky if they say we have an NFT thing and then they try to rename, like they don't want to name it NFT. They want to call it some other shit. And then you're just like, wait, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? I can so see some dumb stuff like that.
Yeah, I can too. I've actually seen a guy on Twitter one time. He was talking about he wanted to coin a new term or whatever. And the term he wanted to coin was already a technological term. And I pointed that out to him that this already exists in the medical field, that he was trying to put it in. And he was like, no, this term means, what happens is that people are online so much that they assume things are a different name. And that's what this term is supposed to mean, whatever. And I was like, bro, dude, that's exactly what you're doing. You're trying to change what that word means. And yeah, I could see some big company coming in. If we already see like small nobodies on Twitter doing that and you're getting big attention, because like in the medical field, I guess he's big, but people on Twitter doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. Big businesses are going to try that too, just so that way they can still say at the end of the day, but we're not in NFTs.
I remember this was like 2-3 years ago, probably like 3 years ago at one of the Black Blockchain Summits. I was talking to a guy who, and this is when like, it was the early parts of stable coins as a talking point. And the dude was talking about how they wanted to put the mining together with the stable coins, but like physical mining. But they wanted to use a different word. And I was just like, wait, what? And then he said it to me again. And I don't remember what the word he wanted to use is now. But I was like, listen, I'm telling you now, I hear you and I get why you want to do that, but it's not going to fly. I promise you, it's not. Lo and behold, I did not see that man the following year at the conference. Like, and you know what's funny though, as far as like how things get named in the space, is there science to it? Once you hear the name, like things do make sense and stuff, right? But is there an absolute rhyme or reason science? I don't think so. Because if it was, like, imagine what you could do from a marketing standpoint to be able to introduce a word and a concept into the lexicon just based on like certain driving forces on the social media side.
Yeah. Do you remember that group of people, they were trying to build that NFT? It's an NFT project where they're going to use the funds from selling these NFTs to build like a small city or something. And they kept calling it an omniverse, and it did really well for them at first. They were like going everywhere, and everybody on like Twitter and Telegrams and stuff, they were all talking about it because of the word omniverse. And then they went on Ken's channel and I pointed out that omniverse been around for 30 years. And it completely, I have not even heard of their project since then. And it's just, what the fuck did that happen? Did it die just because people found out that it wasn't a brand new word? And they could have just, like, all I did was just hit the search on DuckDuckGo, omniverse. Because like when they were talking about it, I was like, I've heard this before. Because like an omni wheel is an any directional wheel. And so they were trying to make an any directional
omni antenna. Yeah.
And yeah, so when I just looked it up and I was like, it was invented by some math person. It's a math term, but that's where it actually comes from, whatever. But yeah, I was pointing out that it already existed. It's like, oh my gosh, If that's all it takes nowadays, like marketing nowadays is crazy.
And then you get into that whole other thing of, did you look at it at the IP level? Is it already trademarked or copywritten someplace?
Yeah, there's I think it was a movie or something behind it too.
Wow. Oh, damn.
I'm looking it up right now just to double check. No, it was NVIDIA owns it. That's why I thought it was a movie. It looked like a movie. NVIDIA owns that term.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, because NVIDIA's metaverse creation platform, I actually have it. I clearly forgot. It came on my computer. It's called Omniverse platform.
Okay. What is the more? Yeah, look, thing just jumped. My Bluetooth just jumped.
Like it disconnect
Yeah.
or something.
So I'm like trying to figure to get it back, and it's like there.
A lot of times I gotta turn them off and back on for me. I have that problem more often than I want to admit.
All right, and then see now I gotta. But do it.
It sounds different. It sounds like how it was.
There it is.
It's where I just having Bluetooth on can make the difference between hearing the world around you and only hearing you.
Right. This light, like this cop car just came and parked in front of me on the corner, and then they threw on the flashes. So you know how they do the thing where they throw on the back ones and not the front one? I'm sitting behind it, so this is just so annoying right now. It's like, why did you have to park on this side? You could have went around the corner. Oh,
Sure.
oh shit, I did it again. God damn it. My bad. That's the wrong part. All right. Hello? All right, there we go. You hear me?
Yo. Awesome.
Yeah. What's going on there? But yeah, so I forgot the last point we were talking on. It was the
We were talking about the marketing and how weird it is right now, and the whole Omniverse is another metaverse.
the company that owns the word. That so is that on the end of them making a product down the line? Or I guess they're gonna do something interesting.
What, NVIDIA?
Yeah.
The product already
Oh.
exists. I actually have it on the computer. It came on this one. It does 3D art, and it's like Blender to the extreme as a 3D graphicer as well. You get your Photoshop plus Blender I think that's the best way to describe it. But when I just looked up Omniverse, it was saying Omniverse platform, build your metaverse first, and then some other stuff. So it looks like it's just a tool. I've never used it. I'm going to have to actually try it out sometime.
Okay, so that's crazy because then that means what was your if you started this platform and then you're gonna go off and try to be like, oh, we're a blah blah blah, we're selling digital real estate or whatever, and then the SEC and shit comes at you, or not even the SEC, NVIDIA's gonna come at you and slap you with a lawsuit. What level of due diligence did y'all do to start the project?
Yeah. And the sad part is like the guys running the project are not only they're all elder guys, like 40 plus, but they're all like within good standing of different industries. And one of the guys was like a really big tech person. Like he
Wow.
used to do a lot of different tech stuff. Yeah, it was insane just for that to how it went
Like,
down.
where was your lawyer on did you search for the patent? Did you search for the copy? Because that's crazy. And then was I talking to you about this? About how some companies will sue you even if something is not exactly their name or that word label, but it might have been a letter or something different, and they'll still come at like, no, that's still our thing. No.
Yeah, it sounds close enough. Yeah.
So crazy. But this is the world that we are in right now, right? And it goes into this whole thing of what is the metaverse stuff gonna really look like at the end of this decade? We're gonna have some hell of a growing pains, but how much of it is going to be Snow Crash versus Neuromancer versus Ready Player One versus, yo, have you heard about that show Cypherpunk on Netflix? No, Cyberpunk?
Nah,
Bruh.
I think I've heard of it, but I've never watched it or nothing.
The shit is definitely heavy on the IoT side and very dystopic. Like very dystopic or reality. Oh man, but it gets into the whole thing of people being like addicted to watching virtuals of other people's experience, but like extreme action stuff. So like that develops into a thing. And it also makes me think about like just how human beings are and our level of like affinity for things. Some people have an affinity for clothes. Yeah. Some people have an affinity for a particular TV series of where like they know every single thing about it. Some people have an affinity for, I collect those little Russian doll things where it's like those little small one and a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one. Like that thing of how people get affixed or fixated on things. I'm always amazed at that. And when I watch certain cartoons or TV shows, I look at it and go, what is that going to look like in the real world in 5 or 10 years?
That's a good point, because one of the things I really jumped in on when my son was born and my daughter was Invader Zim. We didn't have cable, and I had originally watched Invader Zim when I was in high school, and it was like maybe 6 years later, and they had came out with the DVDs, so we bought the DVDs, so we watched Invader Zim because we didn't have cable, so we watched all the episodes. My kids were toddlers, so of course we just kept on repeat, and so I got to a point where like I would get drunk with people and someone there would know about Invader Zim. And they'll be, all right, let me tell you about Invader Zim. And I would just spill on the show episode by episode, line by line. And I just like had all the lines memorized or whatever. And I could tell you what happened and when, all that fun stuff. And then when they came out with the final like remade movie or whatever to bring it back from Netflix or whatever, they actually did a halfway decent job on that one. As odd as it is, they actually did a really good job on that one. And it was really good to see it come back in that manner. But at the same time, it's like, what if they came back out with that again? But instead of it being another movie or TV show, what if it came out there on Metaverse? Because you remember, like in that show, they have 32 individualized planets that have names, characteristics, and all this other stuff about them that you could put into the game or something and just have something that could probably take people years upon years just to finish. And imagine if it was a Metaverse, if for you like me and you could jump on there and be on the same ship and trying to take over the same planet together or whatever. Like that could be some crazy type longevity warplay, like the Command and Conquer type warplay.
Okay, so one, Invader Zim was a hilarious show to me growing up watching that. My memory is horrible, so I can't be I remember line for line and episode for episode, but I definitely watched the shit enough. Funny enough, there's a dude who does 3D printing for the whole ghost gun stuff. He uses a handle that is incorporated with an Invader Zim in it. Cool dude. I met him in Miami at one of the events, but where I was going with the Invader Zim thing was, one, I feel like the original Invader Zim could not be made today, one. And when I say not be made in regards to like, could you run the same script from back then today in today's social climate?
For a large portion of it, oh yeah. But you're right, there are tons of stuff like poop cola, the sawdust, and all the candy, and how all the main products are there to kill you types. That would probably cause a stir nowadays. So yeah, some of it would have to be changed.
Do you remember that show Duckula? It was a duck who was a vampire and he had the castle that teleported. It's a Nickelodeon show too.
I don't think so.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, that was a joint.
Oh, I do know what you're talking about. I had to look it up, and it says Count Duckula. I see the image. I remember seeing this, but I never watched it. I seen the picture.
Like that's another one. And there was a lot of stuff that definitely went over my head as I don't think could be made in today's environment. my point of why I ran down a rabbit hole with that, but initially stopping at the first part of Invader Zim and talking about the gameplay thing, I feel like the more that I see and understand of what's going on with the metaverse stuff, and then looking at the back end of the technology and talking about the AI stuff and how all of that gets into be integrated, the argument that people have about, yo, we're just all in a simulation. And then when you see like the Rick and Morty episode where it's like planet and a planet, and then you look at what's going on just in our existence as it is right now, and so, man, like, how would we know the difference if we're that small within the whole setup? But in the metaverse, like, how far in could you go in the metaverse? You know those art pictures that people do where like they'll do the zoom in and it's like another picture there, then you zoom in and there's another picture there, then you zoom in.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you do that in a metaverse? And take that same concept of that episode in Rick and Morty, where he makes the civilization in order to power the machine. And I'm not saying the power of the machine kind of thing, but one of those, could you make this verse in the metaverse? Like Inception kind of shit? Like layer and layer?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. And like, how would...
Yeah, it definitely could.
His wife's killing me, man. That'd be like another example of what does that really look like if you brought it to scale. And when I say bring it to scale, if you got enough of a community, whether it was 50 people or like 2,000 people, what kind of metaverse setup where you had multi-metaverses like in the Russian doll thing, like how do you move through? What does that look like? Like, how do you access the 9th level or layer versus the 4th level or layer? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I got you. There's an image I've seen before that really describes this really well. So there's these people in a spaceship and they're going out into space and then they go further and then they're going through a nebula cloud. And when they exit the nebula cloud, they actually exited someone's eye.
Yeah.
So it was basically like they thought they were in the universe and then it turns out they were just germs in the universe. And then it's okay. So you have that style where everything seems real. Then the further out you go, it only gets larger in scale. But then you also have the reverse style where it's, okay, I'm in this metaverse and it's a closed metaverse. It's only so big. It's playing by city. And then there's a building somewhere with a really fucking small door that whole, I can't remember the name of that movie, but where they open it up and they slide into someone else. But in this case, we're not sliding into someone else. We're sliding into a different metaverse. And I remember there was a book when I was a kid. I didn't read it, but they read it in class. And it was like, the boy would go through a window. Every time he went through a window, like he'd open up the window and go through, he would exit someone else's front door. So if he was exiting at home, he would end up entering someone else's house. And if he was trying to go into the house, he would end up exiting someone's front door. So every window was attached to a door. So those are the two ways you really look at it, where it's like everything just gets bigger in scale as you go out, or it's almost like a portal on the inside where you open up something and then you go seamlessly into the other spot. And there's an optical illusion. I think it was an art piece where the door frame, when you look inside the door frame, you actually see outside a different door frame and you have a whole different thing to look at. And what it is, it's like a small box. And so when you put your head into the door frame, you're actually just looking into the box. But when you go around to the other side and you look in, it's a different part of the box that they don't connect. So it always looks like a new piece. And you could have two people at the same time and they'll never see each other. So there's the...
Hello?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just saying that's how you could probably do them.
That, and then like, how do you work that out? And not how do you work it out, but what does that look like for the community development or like the user activity habits? Do you make each world just a smaller version of the thing that it's, you know what I'm saying? Or do you have it where each one has its own, like this one's about like purple clouds, this one's about people who like XYZ, or like the level of imagination and endlessness is really far. I think it's really far in that regard. And then you just look at it like, if you give people access to this, where would they go with this?
Yeah. Now let's go with this throw of thought. So we start a platform and we run it on a blockchain so we don't have to worry about whatever. But in order to get in, you run up a miner and a node. So now everybody who's in helps make sure it maintains right. And everybody who gets in, everybody has a node, basically, a world in the game is created. All right. So the way we make the world is that node watches your browser history. And so everybody's world is independently different. It's fingerprinted to your browser history, right? In your stuff you do on your phone or computer or whatever. And then so that way it can also be correlated directly to you, stuff you like, stuff you enjoy, whatever. And it's like there's a town that someone really enjoys. Like me, I go to Little Sweden as often as I can in Kansas. And so it's like that town might exist in my planet in this thing. We just let AI do the hard work. AI is doing more art. It's able to do more code. We could like literally have an endless, seamless world of possibilities for every new person that shows up. There's something new out there. What happens if you get mass adoption on something like that and you go from 15 people to 100,000 people to a couple of million people? It could actually become so large that no one person could see everything. And then you have they got those space games that came out 4 or 5 years ago, where it was like, you actually had to travel from planet to planet. And so we could have mini games or stuff on ships, but the time that it takes to go from planet to planet could be real. And that could be correlated to like how long you've been up compared to how long I've been up. So if your device has been up longer, you're further out in the universe. Your device has been up shorter, you're closer to the center, things like that. And it's like, what happens when it's been up for so long where there's no one near the center almost ever?
Good points. Good points. I do want to say, I know that X amount of this is just like me in 3D, just running through some thought exercises and asking questions and then answering it on our own. It doesn't mean that we're saying we're 100% right on these things. It is, though, that we are questioning, like, what is this actually going to look like in real world when we get to the point that someone does figure out how to do stuff like this? Because if we're thinking it, it is 100% guaranteed that somebody else thought of this and they might be the ones who actually look to execute it, or somebody else does. And that's just where we are right now in this whole space as far as being able to, quote, create things.
Yeah. And I think like moving forward, the people doing over big businesses doing like in the creation side, it's going to be more important. I'm waiting for the day that some big business comes out with a social media platform and they're like, oh, you guys figure out how it's going to look and stuff. You guys do all that. We're not going to do that. And like MySpace, but to the extreme point of, all right, how do we make this thing look? How do we make this thing work? And we're like, you just have to like submit code to build the actual platform. I'm waiting for that because that's when the creatives really rule over what the big businesses do.
Oh man, not that I don't know, but yeah, I had another, oh God, check this point out that somebody said to me today. In talking about how the coding and stuff in this space would go, but then looking at the technology you're able to think the thought, like you're thinking what it is you want to see visually. And the idea of creation in this virtual space is going to be a different thing. Or you'll be connected to some kind of software headset thing and you think of the thing and then it brings that into the reality of what you're seeing visually in front of you or whatever. But the people who are doing the actual coding side of it, that's a whole different level on what they're doing. And so like we talked about this a number of times as far as like the idea of being a creator in this thing we call the metaverses or the metaverse is really plural. For anybody who listens to this afterwards, it's literally plural. It's more than one type of metaverse, and they've been around before the whole crypto thing. But the idea that, where was I going? Where was I going? The Web3 future and everything moving forward after that, like the idea of it's not just going to be you got to text it or type it out to figure out the thing you want to create. It's you say it and the AI voice algo is going to be able to just put that together for you right there. And then somebody's going to come up with the most advanced like headset system and you think it and boop, visual right there for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff is not that far away. I've been playing with that diffusion thing and a couple other AIs, and I'm getting to a point where when I do stuff on Night Cafe, I can actually pretty much get somewhat of the results that I'm looking for. Where I've even gotten it to draw people, and it's not really supposed to be the one Night Cafe doesn't really supposed to draw people, but I've gotten it to draw people, and like I tried it to get it to build a DJ Meat Popsicle. And it was actually able to get something somewhat similar in not facial structure, but like in what it looked like, skin color, the fact that he's got a mustache, like his glasses and stuff. And it's just like AI, you give it enough repetitive information and it can start to put the puzzle pieces together for you in a lot of things. And we do have like Ruby on Rails is a programming language designed around modular systems where it can actually write its own code in case of, like, you can actually store code in blocks inside your program, and then it can actually react to the user on the fly. It's one of the big reaction web page code languages. So getting AI to write that kind of language to do the 3D or like the AI art stuff, like we're not that far away from something where AI is going to be able to make stuff and just entertain us for a long time.
Sorry. Yeah. There's a whole conversation I was having about the AI stuff today too. Like definitely some smart folks that I was running across and just how I am with the side conversation stuff. So yeah, definitely some interesting people making some interesting correlations about what's here now and then what we're about to see come down the pike in another 2 or 3 years. And yeah, arguably, if you haven't been trying to get some understanding now, when everything ramps up, man, it's just going to be a whole different environment. And either you with it or you not. That's the easiest way I can say it. Either you with it or you're not.
Yeah, that is true. And like more things are going to be like that though, as we're going on in the future, not just this stuff, but everything's being more like that. Cause I know like right now, everybody's focusing on inclusivity. And I'm already starting to see where like more companies are coming out where they're like, oh, we don't really care who's doing this as long as it's being done or people are involved with it or whatever. And I think that's part of what we need in the world. We have so many people we just need a point where people just do whatever they want and not worry and care about everything else following them.
But does that work for people who that's hilarious. Sorry, somebody just so didn't ask the question, and I find it kind of funny right now. Yeah, like the giving the people. Ooh, sorry. What about on time?
Yeah, let's look more about time. My alarm just went off telling me that exactly.
Oh, that's what that was. Okay. Like, ooh, what is that? That was loud.
Yeah. I don't know why I have one set for 8. Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious. All right. So on the closeout announcements, we got to do this house announcements. One, we host these Twitter spaces every week, and the day that we're doing now is Thursdays. which arguably has been X amount better than the Sunday that we initially started with. Like last week, I wasn't able to make it in, but 3D had 2 hour joint go on. Shout out.
Yeah, we completely lost track of time.
Yeah, right now, seems like we sticking to Thursdays because Thursday might not have worked out today, but Sundays was definitely harder to deal with in regards to drawing people in to participate.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we do these every week on a Thursday, 8 p.m. East Coast time. And we usually try to think of the conversation centerpiece beforehand. And hopefully folks are interested enough to take part and come and join us. And we appreciate when they do. And if you're listening to this afterwards, please do share. Please do push it on, pass it on to other folks to get them to start taking an interest for that direction that the metaverses can be taken or how things can be built, or at least start questioning, what does this really mean to me going forward? Am I going to be a part of this space? Not saying you have to, just throwing it out there that like you can be an active participant or a passive participant in this whole thing. And then the other thing being, like, you want to go
I was
ahead?
gonna say, and speaking of participating, we do have the metaverse, the Metaverse Toolbox website. And just recently we had a problem where all of the pinned services I had it pinned, dropped it randomly all at the same time. And so if you want to participate after this space is over, I'm going to actually comment on the bottom where I'll put the CID of the Metaverse Toolbox website's IPFS call ID. And then if you just go onto your IPFS node, search for that CID and then download it and then upload it into your node, it can actually help us get the word out on that website, help keep it up all the time, or make it even faster for some people to load.
There you have it. Like, this is that part of the technology, the decentralization / censorship resistance stuff that I'm not saying everybody else is trying to bring up, but there's definitely a part of the difference between decentralization and censorship resistance that's not being addressed in the space in an honest conversation. But nonetheless, definitely check out the Metaverse Toolbox. If you are somebody who has IPFS, like, definitely, hopefully help us out in bringing that into your node so we can get this out there more. Oh, so what was it? Spaces, IPFS. And the last thing, of course, being that we are doing our webinars, which are introductions into the whole metaverse space. And we call it the Metaverse Cliff Notes to Web3, which is centered around like things that you as an intro beginner would look to know and learn and understand about metaverses and basically the distinction between the crypto and the non-crypto side metaverses, or how to spot the potentials of scams or potential opportunities of things that you could do within these metaversal spaces, aka virtual worlds. Granted, we're using different labels and names because we have new buzzwords now, but arguably it is still the same stuff. And funny enough, some people are still coming into learning that they exist, right? Not everybody is a techie person, but that's what we do. This next one is going to be the end of this month. You can find the ticket information on Eventbrite, and it is literally called Metaverses, the Cliff Notes to Web3. So, yeah.
You know, it is definitely worth it. A check out.
And that's my last part, man. I don't got anything else.
Yeah, I think that this was the first Thursday that we got no returners or no one coming back in, but it was still a good talk. I think anybody listening in later on, they're definitely gonna be like, oh, snap.
Yeah.
Did not realize. I did not know. I did not think
Yeah,
of.
we definitely ran down a couple of rabbit hole or mental exercises on some things that somebody might one day have as an idea that it can turn into something to monetize on. You see? Yeah. So other than that, folks, have a good evening and have a good day tomorrow and the weekend, and we'll see you next week.